It was the kind of night that turned your bones to glass, black skies splitting with thunder, rain slapping the earth like punishment. I was halfway through a bottle of something warm and mean, thinking about Rachel again, when I heard it. Scratch. Scratch. Then a pause. Then again. More insistent this time. At first I thought it was just the wind tossing a branch against the siding, but it came again, slower now, more deliberate. I set the bottle down and stood, waiting for it. It came. Third time, scratch, scratch, scratch. The porch light had burned out months ago and I hadn't bothered replacing it. So when I opened the front door, all I had was the yellow cone of my flashlight. And there they were, a German shepherd. Big, soaked, and silent, standing still in the center of the porch like she'd been carved from obsidian. Her fur clung tight to her ribs. Her eyes didn't blink. At her feet, two puppies shivered under her belly. Smaller than they should have been, looked more like newborns than anything ready to be outside. One of them whimpered and she responded by laying her paw protectively across its back. None of them moved toward me. None of them barked. They just stared. I didn't move either. I don't know how long we stood there, man and dog, locked in some unspoken agreement of silence. The rain soaked my socks. My flashlight flickered. Finally, I stepped aside. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said, as much to convince myself as them. "Come in if you need to." The mother didn't move until the pups began to crawl forward. She followed them in, slow, like something behind her might still be watching. I shut the door. I grabbed old towels from the hallway closet. I kept a pile of them, leftovers from the days when Rachel and I would take in rescue dogs. That was a lifetime ago. I hadn't brought a dog inside since. I knelt and began drying the pups. They didn't resist. Their fur was thin, patchy even. Their little spines trembled under my hands. "You're just skin and nerves, huh?" I whispered. "Where the hell did you come from?" The mother didn't like me touching them. She hovered, standing stiff, watching me with those dark eyes. But she didn't growl, didn't bare teeth. She just froze. It was the freezing that got to me. Some dogs bark when they're afraid. Some back up or lunge, but not her. She was a statue, completely still except her eyes, which darted again and again toward the front door. I looked outside. Nothing. Just rain and woods. I led them to the fireplace, but the shepherd stopped short of the rug. She sniffed once and turned her head, sharply. The pups, as if mimicking her, skittered to the side. I crouched. "You don't like the fire?" She stared at the ceiling above us. No, not the ceiling, the attic. I felt something tighten in my chest. I hadn't been up there in months, maybe longer. A draft passed over me then, cold and musty, like someone had cracked open an old book filled with mold and bad dreams. I shook it off. "Fine, you want to sleep over there, be my guest." The dogs settled near the far wall. I dragged out an old blanket for them, poured some water in a mixing bowl. They didn't touch it. I didn't sleep. That night, somewhere around 3 in the morning, I heard it again. Not from the porch this time, from inside the walls. Soft, irregular tapping. Then a dragging sound. I grabbed the flashlight. The shepherd was already up, standing in the kitchen now. Her ears perked, her pupils dilated. She was facing the basement. Door, she let out a low growl. Not angry, not aggressive, just warning. The pups huddled behind her. I approached slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The house was dead quiet except for the ticking of the grandfather clock and the soft wheeze of the wind under the door. I reached for the basement handle. She growled again, this time louder. I looked at her. "I have to know." The door creaked open. A cold gust rose from the black below, thick with the scent of mildew and copper. I clicked the flashlight on and descended. The beam danced against stone steps and warped wooden beams. Halfway down, the flashlight sputtered. I smacked it once. It flared back to life. That's when I heard it, not a sound exactly, a feeling. It was like memory came alive around me. Whispers of Rachel's voice, laughter, then coughing, then silence. Images I hadn't recalled in years. Our wedding, her in the hospital bed, the way she squeezed my hand before they took her away. I turned and fled up the stairs. The shepherd was waiting at the top, body taut, standing in front of the pups like a shield. I slammed the door and backed away. The flashlight dropped from my hand and rolled across the floor. I didn't pick it up. I sat there, on the ground, gasping. The house was too quiet again. The air, too. Still, I pulled myself up, went to the kitchen to check the back windows, just to be sure nothing had gotten in. That's when I noticed it. The floor. The German shepherd had clawed a perfect circle into the hardwood. About 2 feet across, deep scratches over and over, all leading to one central point. I knelt down, pried up a loose board. Beneath it, metal, smooth, cold, circular, a hatch. My breath fogged against it. The shepherd didn't move. She stood behind, me silent and stiff, eyes locked on the thing beneath my feet. She was trembling. That's when I realized. I was too. I stared down at the hidden door, the dogs at my back, and I whispered something I hadn't said in years. Rachel. What? Is this? The room didn't answer, but the scratching inside the walls. It stopped, and the pups, for the first time since they arrived, lay down and closed their eyes. The shepherd stayed standing, watching, waiting, like she knew, like she remembered, like she'd been here before. I didn't sleep. I didn't drink. I sat on the couch and watched them all night, the hatch burning like a secret beneath the floor. When the morning light finally crept in through the windows, the rain was gone, but the silence stayed, and I knew the story wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. I didn't know what I expected the next morning. Maybe the dogs would be gone, like ghosts that had wandered in during the storm and vanished before dawn. But when I shuffled into the living room, rubbing the weight of sleepless hours from my eyes, they were still there. The mother was awake, standing, alert, still frozen in that posture of constant defense, her gaze trained on the floor like the thing beneath it hadn't stopped whispering. The pups, at least, were asleep, curled into each other like twin commas, their little chests rising and falling in perfect unison. I crouched beside the scratched circle. The hatch was real, not a dream, not a hallucination brought on by too much whiskey and too little sleep. It was metal, rusted at the edges but smooth and cold to the touch. There was no handle, no latch, just a flat, solid disc about 2 feet across, embedded in the foundation. And the scratches, Jesus, they were deep. The mother must have torn her nails doing this. I leaned in, pressed my ear to the floor. Nothing, no scratching, no dragging. Just the faint hum of silence, thick and pressing like someone had packed the air full of wet cotton. When I sat back up, the shepherd had crept closer. Not threatening, just near. Her eyes bore into mine, and for a moment I swear I thought. She was about to speak. I held out my hand. You trying to show me something or keep me away? She didn't move. Her ears twitched and I realized she was listening. So I listened too. That's when I heard it. The grandfather clock in the hall. Its ticking had stopped. I turned, walked toward it, ran my fingers along the glass case. Opened it. The pendulum. Hung dead still even though I'd wound it just 2 days ago. I touched it, gave it a nudge. Nothing. It didn't swing. I tried again, harder, still nothing. I stepped back. A cold sweat broke out along the back of my neck. That clock had belonged to Rachel's grandfather. It had survived 5 moves, 2 power outages, and a small electrical fire. It had never stopped, but it had now. I looked around the house. Everything seemed the same. Same furniture, same faded walls, same dusty light leaking through cracked blinds. But something had shifted, like the air had thickened. The German shepherd padded past me, moving into the hallway. Her steps were deliberate, silent, paws soft on the wood. I followed her, heart thudding against my ribs. She led me to the attic. The pull string dangled like a spider's thread. I hadn't been up there since Rachel died. I had sealed that part of the house away in my mind like a tomb. That space held boxes filled with wedding pictures, old clothes and journals I couldn't bear to open. It was a time capsule of another life. The shepherd sat at the base of the ladder, staring up. Her tail didn't move. She was waiting. I swallowed hard and pulled the string. The ladder groaned as it unfolded. The attic smelled like dust and old grief. I climbed slowly, flashlight in hand. The beam swept over forgotten memories. Rachel's sewing machine, a trunk of letters, an old rocking chair, and something new. At the far end of the attic, behind a stack of boxes, something shimmered. I stepped. Over old books and holiday decorations, my breath catching in my throat. A mirror, but not ours. This one was different. Antique. The kind of thing you'd see in a Victorian mansion or a horror film. Carved edges, blackened glass. It was leaning against the wall, hidden behind an old garment bag. I didn't remember bringing it up here, didn't remember owning it. And yet there it was. I reached out. My fingers didn't touch glass. They touched velvet. A cloth had been draped over the mirror. It was the same shade of wine red as Rachel's favorite scarf. For a moment I thought it was her scarf. But no, it was too large, too thick, heavy with the scent of mothballs and something else. Something metallic, blood. I pulled it back. The mirror reflected the attic. But not me. I stood directly in front of it, flashlight aimed at my chest. Nothing. The reflection was empty. Only the room behind me showed. The boxes, the rocking chair, the dust motes floating through air. But where I should have stood, nothing. No silhouette, no shadow. I stumbled back, breathing hard. My hands trembled. A sound rose from the mirror, not from the attic, from inside the glass. Soft at first, then louder, whimpering. Puppies. I turned. The shepherd was at the top of the ladder now. One paw. On the attic floor, body still taut. She was staring at the mirror. A low growl built in her throat, guttural and deep. And she began barking, ferociously. A sound so raw and primal it raised goosebumps across my arms. I grabbed the cloth and threw it back over the mirror. The barking stopped. So did the whimpering. I sank to the floor, trying to steady my breath. The shepherd walked to my side and sat down, close. Close enough I could feel the heat of her body through my shirt. She didn't look at me, just kept her gaze on the mirror, alert and ready. I didn't ask why the mirror was there. I didn't ask what I'd seen, because deep down I already knew. Something had come into this house with the storm, something the dogs were running from. Or maybe running toward. I carried the mirror down the attic ladder, wrapped tight in the red velvet cloth. I set it against the living room wall and stared at it for a long time. The pups stirred on their blanket. One of them sneezed, a wet little chirp. That broke the silence. The grandfather clock began ticking again, just like that. Tick, tick, tick. I glanced at the shepherd. She didn't relax. I spent the rest of the day reading, looking for symbols, old news clippings, anything online about buried hatches or mirrors that didn't show reflections. At some point, I must have drifted off. When I woke, the house was dark again, except for the faint glow of the moon through the blinds. The mirror was uncovered. I know I didn't touch it, but the cloth was on the ground, pooled like spilled wine across the floorboards. And in the mirror, I saw a shape, not my reflection, something standing behind me. Tall, thin, its face, all wrong, like a mask stretched too far over bone. I turned around, heart in my throat. Nothing there. The room was empty. The dogs were asleep. The shepherd was gone. I called out, "Girl?" No answer. I checked the kitchen, the hallway, the back door. Still locked. Then I saw it. The basement door, open, wide. I ran. Down the stairs, flashlight swinging, bouncing shadows along the walls. She was at the bottom, standing in front of the far wall. Her ears back, tail down, growling low. The concrete wall was wet, slick with something oily and dark. Symbols had been drawn in it. Circles, spirals, lines that twisted like thorns, all glowing faintly red, as if backlit from beneath. The hatch, still under the floor upstairs, hummed above us. A vibration I felt in my knees, my ribs, my teeth. The shepherd turned and looked at me. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, with warning. She stepped forward and placed her paw against the wall. The symbols pulsed once, then faded. The wall crumbled inward. Beyond it, a passage, dark, long, sloping down. I didn't want to go in, but the shepherd did. She turned and walked into the darkness, and the pups, as if pulled by invisible thread, woke upstairs and began to cry. Their cries weren't normal, they were desperate, calling for her, calling for me. So I followed her in, and as the dark swallowed me, the last thing I saw was the mirror on the living room wall. It showed me walking into the tunnel, and behind me, something followed. But I never looked back. I couldn't. Not yet. Not when the answers were ahead, and Rachel's voice, soft and trembling, echoed in my ears. Don't turn around. Here is section 3 of your story. German Shepherd freezes with 2 pups. The man's decision to open the door will shock you. This section deepens the mystery and emotional resonance while escalating the supernatural tension, keeping the diary-style narration focused and immersive. Word count, approx. 2,000 words. I never imagined the ground beneath my house stretched so far down. The tunnel was narrow at first, rough-hewn stone brushing my shoulders. The German Shepherd padded ahead silently, her body always just barely visible at the edge of my flashlight's beam. The air was colder than it had any right to be. Not damp cold like a basement, but ancient cold, like the kind of chill that has nothing to do with weather. The farther we went, the more unnatural it all felt. The tunnel didn't twist or dip. It descended in a slow, smooth spiral like we were circling something, some terrible drain in the earth. Every now and then I'd hear something above us. Not footsteps, not movement, more like creaking. A groaning, like beams under weight. But I knew there was nothing above but dirt. And the foundation. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My throat was dry, not from fear exactly, something deeper. Reverence, maybe. Like I'd stepped into a place I shouldn't have found. A place that wasn't meant to be found. After what felt like an hour, the passage opened. Cavern, massive, jaw-dropping. Carved into the earth like a cathedral, except it wasn't man-made. The walls were lined with stone that shimmered faintly green, as though veins of some sickly mineral pulsed inside it. I swept my light across the space and nearly dropped it. There were bones. Not animal bones. Not human either. Long, twisted, arranged in careful patterns like nests. Some spiraled, some formed what looked like letters, but no alphabet I recognized. In the middle of the cavern, a platform, carved from black stone. Like an altar. The German Shepherd stopped there. She didn't bark. She just stared. I approached, slowly, my legs unwilling. My stomach churned. On the altar was a book old-bound in something dark and waxy. I stepped closer, against every instinct in my body. The air around the book shimmered, like heat. But it wasn't warm. My fingers went cold the closer I got. I opened it. The pages weren't paper, they were skin, thin, stretched, written in ink so dark it was almost red. Symbols, diagrams, names I couldn't pronounce. But one page, just one, was in English. Single sentence. To seal the mouth, a sacrifice must understand the weight of what they've lost. I didn't know what it meant, not yet, but my eyes wouldn't stop reading it again and again. The mouth, the hatch, the mirror. I turned the page. There was a drawing of my house. Not just a house, my house. The big window in the living room, the attic vent, even the crooked gutter from the last storm. It was my house, and under it, deep underground, that same spiral tunnel. That same black altar, and something else, a shape. Buried deep beneath, a mouth. Huge, ringed with teeth. It looked like it was sleeping, but it was labeled, "He Who Waits." The German Shepherd growled. Not at the book, at something behind us. I turned slowly. There was a figure at the far end of the cavern, standing just outside the flashlight's reach, unmoving. I couldn't see its face, only its silhouette, tall, gaunt, arms too long. I whispered, Who are you? Didn't respond. It raised one hand, pointed to the book, then to me, then to the shepherd. I stepped in front of her instinctively, heart pounding in my throat. The figure tilted its head. The shepherd didn't growl anymore. She moved past me, slowly toward the figure. "No," I said, voice cracking. "Don't." But she didn't stop. She stood before the thing, barely reaching its ribs, and sat down. There was no sound, no light, no flash, just silence. Then the figure bent forward. Its head dipped toward her. Its arms hovered over her skull like it was giving her a blessing. She didn't flinch. When it stepped back, she turned and walked toward me. Her eyes had changed. Still brown, still kind, but knowing. Deeper. She looked. Tired, I dropped the book and knelt beside her. "What did you see?" I whispered. She licked my hand. That's when I noticed the mark on her chest. A faint glowing line in the shape of the spiral from the altar. Pulsing. The moment I saw it, I felt something shift in the ground. The hatch. It was waking up. We ran. Don't remember the climb. I don't remember how long it took or whether the tunnel ever changed direction. All I remember is emerging into the basement, gasping for breath. My clothes soaked in cold sweat. The pups were crying again. We burst into the living room. The mirror had cracked down the center. The floorboards above the hatch were shaking. The cloth was gone. Standing in front of the mirror was the same figure. From the cavern. This time I saw its face. It was mine, my face, but older and full of sorrow. It looked at me with such sadness I wanted to scream. I stumbled backward. The shepherd stood between us, tail stiff, body quivering. My voice came out raw. "What do you want?" The figure didn't speak. It just pointed down, to the hatch. The message was clear. "You brought it here. You opened the door. You have to close it." The shepherd barked once, sharp, urgent, and then I understood. The pups. They weren't hers. They weren't even dogs. They were pieces of it. The thing underground. The mouth. Splinters sent out through cracks in the seal. Made flesh. The shepherd hadn't rescued them. She had lured them in. She was a guardian, a jailer. And now, the prison was failing. I had to choose. Seal it, or let it feed. Rachel's voice echoed again, not from the mirror, from me. To seal the mouth, a sacrifice must understand the weight of what they've lost. I stared at the pups. They looked up at me, innocent, wiggling, wagging. But something behind their eyes wasn't right. They didn't blink. They didn't breathe. They waited. Waiting for me. I turned to the shepherd. She didn't move. Her eyes said, "Everything." I understood. I lifted the pups, one in each arm. They didn't resist. They didn't whine. They curled into my chest, silent. I carried them to the hatch. The shepherd followed. The floor beneath us pulsed, warm now, alive. The hatch groaned. Be itself, inside, darkness and heat and a sound like breathing. I knelt, whispered, "I'm sorry," and placed them inside. The hatch slammed shut. The floor stilled. The mirror shattered and everything went silent. I collapsed. The shepherd curled beside me. The grandfather clock started ticking again. Upstairs, sunlight leaked through the blinds. And for the first time in years, the air in the house felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. The shepherd rested her head on my lap. Her eyes finally closed, and I cried. Not from fear, not from relief, but from something older than both. Grief, loss, understanding. I didn't know what I had sealed, or if it was forever, but I knew the house was whole again, and I knew the shepherd had saved me. Would you like me to proceed with Section 4, the thrilling final climax and resolution? Wish I could say that everything ended that night. That sealing the hatch put an end to the strange pulses beneath the floor and the shadows behind the mirrors. I told myself it had. For a while, I even believed it. The German shepherd. Now, a constant at my side, seemed calm. The mark on her chest faded over the following days. Her energy returned, her eyes softened. Sometimes I'd wake to find her watching the wall, ears forward, unmoving. But she never barked again, just observed. Like a sentinel, I fixed the mirror in the hallway, took down the drapes, let sunlight into rooms that had felt like mausoleums. Even the grandfather clock started keeping time again. Life somehow resumed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting, not beneath the house, not in the tunnel, but inside me. It started subtly. I'd dream of the pups, not as dogs, but as formless shapes shifting and watching. Sometimes I'd hear soft scratching under the floorboards. I'd convince myself it was rats, or pipes, or old wood. But deep down I knew I hadn't sealed it, I'd only delayed it. Then came the letter. No return address, no postage mark, just placed under my door like a secret. Inside a single page, typed, no greeting, no explanation, just 3 words. You are marked. I read it again and again, hoping it would change. The shepherd growled the moment I touched it. And suddenly, I was back in that cavern, back in the spiral tunnel, back under the crushing weight of the mouth, the thing we had only numbed, not silenced. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the living room floor, flashlight in one hand, the shepherd beside me. I stared at the hatch for hours, expecting it to groan open again, but it didn't. Something worse happened. The lights in the house all flickered off at once, and then silence. Total. No wind, no creaks, no hum of the refrigerator. Even the ticking clock stopped. The shepherd stood, ears flattened, hackles raised. Then from upstairs, Rachel's voice. Soft. Familiar. Wrong. Honey. Can you help me? I'm stuck. My heart turned to ash. The voice was hers. Exactly. But it wasn't hers. Rachel had never called me honey, never once. I stood, legs numb, flashlight trembling in my grip. The shepherd blocked the stairs, barking low and continuous. But I heard it again. Please. I'm so cold. I moved past her. She tried to stop me, but I had to see. I climbed the stairs, one at a time, like I was approaching my own execution. The hallway light was dead. The door to the bedroom, ajar. A faint light flickered inside. Pushed it open. The room was empty, but the mirror above the dresser had changed. It showed a room. Not mine. Stone walls, flickering torches, and inside, Rachel, or the shape of her. She stood facing away, hair wet, arms limp, as if she'd just crawled from water. She turned, and her eyes, they weren't hers, not brown, not human. The moment I saw them, something moved inside the mirror. Not her. Behind her. Huge, indescribable. A shape not meant to be understood. A mouth without end. A mass of spirals and teeth and limbs that folded like paper. And then, it looked at me. It saw me. The mirror cracked again. I stumbled backward. The shepherd lunged, teeth bared, growling like I'd never heard before. The mirror shattered. And that was when I realized the truth. It hadn't been the pups. It hadn't been the hatch. It had always been me. I'd brought it here. My grief, my obsession, my inability to let go. I had fed it. Every night I sat in silence, begging for Rachel to speak. Every whispered prayer, every tear dropped onto her picture. That thing didn't come for blood. It came for sorrow. I ran downstairs. The hatch was open, not groaning, not screaming, just open. A soft breeze blew from inside, carrying the smell of earth and old rot. I should have fled. I should have burned the house down, but instead I stepped forward, not because I was brave, because I had no choice. The shepherd followed, down the spiral tunnel, faster this time, no hesitation. This time, I knew where we were going. The altar, the book, still there, waiting. Open to the same page, the same sentence. To seal the mouth, a sacrifice must understand the weight of what they've lost. I finally understood. It wasn't about blood. It wasn't about death. It was about release, letting go of the thing that hurt most, the thing I refused to stop holding on to. I knelt beside the book. The shepherd rested her head on my knee, and I whispered, I release you, Rachel. I forgive you for leaving, and I forgive myself for not saving you. I let you go. The moment I said it, the cavern trembled. A low groan echoed from below, and then silence. Complete. The altar cracked down the center. The green glow in the walls faded. The spiral mark on the shepherd's chest dimmed and vanished. She looked up at me, licked my hand once, then she stood and walked into the darkness alone. I called after her. She didn't look back. She disappeared into the mouth of the spiral tunnel. And then, as if by magic, the tunnel collapsed behind her. The stone folded in on itself like clay. The path gone. The way sealed. Forever. I returned home. Alone. The hatch no longer existed. No mirror showed impossible rooms. No pups waited for me with ancient eyes. Just silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't weigh on you. The kind that means peace. I buried her collar beneath the oak tree out back, the one Rachel loved, and I sat there until morning. The sun rising slow and golden through the leaves. I thought it would end with fire and screams, but it ended with a choice to let go, to love enough to move on, even if it meant being alone. Especially then. The house is quiet now, but not dead. The rooms are lighter. The clock ticks. I live, and sometimes, when the wind is just right, I hear footsteps outside. Not heavy, not threatening, just soft. 4 of them, circling the house like a sentry, keeping watch. And I know she's still out there. Not a prisoner anymore, but a guardian. Watching, waiting, protecting. The world from the thing beneath, and me from myself, until I'm ready to let go completely, until I'm ready to go home.